Welcome, Europe. We're pumping up the jam for European history in World War One. Oh, I want to learn at home on the computer. Yes, I do. Yes, whoops, messed up. Let's stop right there and go to the notes. All right, today we're going to be talking about, of course, these entangling alliances that really lead to World War One. And so, as you can see from the screen right here, what we have set up is really just the beginning of this. If you were to ask someone about this time, who's going to go to war, they would say Austria-Hungary versus Russia because of the Balkans tension. You could say Britain versus France because of Fashoda. And always you could say France versus Germany because of La Revanche, Alsace-Lorraine. So starting from that idea of that tension, we can begin to build our alliance system. And so it really begins right here with the Emperor's League. Is basically these three countries that you see will consult each other to keep the peace, and Bismarck was a big part of that. Then in 1879, because Bismarck doesn't want to fight a two-front war and needs allies, he makes this dual alliance with Austria-Hungary, and they will be the junior ally to Germany. And then we take it a step forward in 1882, of course, with the Triple Alliance. Basically, Italy is going to the highest bidder. They would have gone anywhere, and they're angry over the French taking Tunisia. And this is just a defensive alliance against France because Germany knows the animosity that France has, and Italy is going to be promised by Germany territory like the Dalmatian coast, of course, and a little bit of Trieste and some other places that we'll show when we get to Versailles. They don't get it, by the way. And of course, they switch sides in the war. They switched sides both times during both World Wars, so you can't really trust Italy, right? And that relates nothing to the coronavirus in Italy right now, by the way. Just want to throw that out there. So, with that being said, so we have the first part of this alliance, the Triple Alliance. Italy's not that important, but we have Germany and Austria-Hungary, so we got to set up the others, of course. So in 1887, Berlin signs this reinsurance treaty with Russia. So it's all good. There's still this little tension over the Balkans, and this treaty stated each party would remain neutral unless Germany attacked France and Russia attacked Austria-Hungary. That should have done it, except in 1890, Bismarck is fired. And the new Kaiser allows this treaty to expire. And remember what Bismarck said. He said, always be friends with the Russians. And so when he's fired, the Kaiser allows this treaty to expire in 1892. France leaves at the chance for an ally, because remember, they hate Germany, and joins with Russia. It's a defensive alliance if one is attacked by Germany or its allies. And because of Bismarck's gone, guess who now potentially has a two-front war? Germany does. So, Kaiser shouldn't have fired Bismarck. Things probably would have worked out better for you. So we have a piece of the Triple Entente. We have France and Russia are together. So we're missing one. So remember, there's five great powers going on right now in Europe. There's Austria-Hungary, Germany, Russia, France, and Britain. And Bismarck always said, if there's five great powers, we must be à trois. Well, right now it's 2-2, with one left, and that, of course, is Britain. So what about Britain? In 1905, in the Boer War, they realized that they had no friends. Even the Kaiser was sending the Boer commander Kruger congratulatory things. So they abandon this splendid isolation. They make a treaty with Japan, if you remember, after the Russo-Japanese War, and they begin to look for friends. And this is in 1905 where you get the Entente Cordiale. And France is very happy to do this because what do we see is they hate Germany and they know the dual alliance and all this, so they need friends, they need allies. This idea that you gotta have allies, you can't be without the most allies, is extremely important. And we'll talk about why France needs this even more. They're not having any babies at this point. So this was Entente Cordiale, which means a friendly understanding with France that eased the tensions since fashoda for them to be pals. And basically, Brits recognize French control of Morocco, and France recognizes Brit control of Egypt, as you can see. And it's all good. And then Germany gets involved in this, and they actually push the Brits and French into a closer a relationship. How? Brits are very proud of their navy. They think they have the best navy in the world at this time, and they do. And Germany's going to compete with that. So year after year, they're building bigger and bigger battleships. This year, the British build the Dreadnought. The next year, Germany's build a bigger one, and so forth. This creates tension. Then Germany builds the Baghdad Railway. And means control over Turkey and disruption of Indian trade. Remember how the Brits are just so drawn to India, and they do not want any hindrance of that trade. And what else pushes the Brits and the French together is the Moroccan crisis of 1905 and 1911. Don't need to know too much, but just that it results in a close relationship with France and Britain. But basically what happens in 1905, the Kaiser actually lands in Morocco. And he goes around Tangiers, actually, in northern Morocco, and starts saying that Moroccans need independence from the Frenchies. And so he's doing this to test this alliance between the French and the British. And then in 1911, he tested again there's a revolt in Morocco against the new Sultan, and Germany sends a gunboat to Agadir to supposedly protect German interests. So they're getting involved in this colony. French colony, in essence. So Germany's playing hardball politics. I don't even know if Bismarck was around, if he would have ever done that, but they're doing this. And what it does is French and Brits just begin to realize that the sole enemy in Europe right now is Germany. So Germany, I don't think, did a good job at that. So in 1911, the French and the Brits declare mutual aid in defense of a German attack. It's very loose, and you'll see this come back up when at the beginning of World War I. And now we have the end, of course, the Triple Entente. If you remember, we talked about this as one of your imperialism questions, about all this tension with Russia and Britain in Persia, and also, if you remember, the tongue of Afghanistan. All of this was to reduce tensions. And to stamp that reduction of tensions between these two countries, the Anglo and the Russian Entente in 1907 was created. And that's, of course, where we get the Triple Entente. All right? Only the Russians and the French in this Triple Entente had a defensive alliance. The Brits, who were part of this, did not have to have any type of defensive responsibility or engage defensively with them. It was only the Russians and the French. And this defensive alliance between the Russians and the French, it's great, and I have an OLH, and I need to send it to you, of course, the Alexander Bridge is to cement this relationship. It's also an interesting relationship because France is a republic and Russia is run by an autocrat. So it's strange bedfellows, as the saying goes. So this is where we are. We've set up the Triple Alliance, and we've set up the Triple Entente. Remember, Triple Alliance is, when you think about it, is, of course, Germany, Austria, Hungary, and the Italians. And then the Triple Entente is Russia and France and Britain. Right? But we can't forget this one area, which is the Balkans. And so, remember how Bismarck, the famous quote, he said, is some damn foolish thing in the Balkans going to start the next war. So we're actually going to build up to that really quick. So Austria is pushing into the Balkans, and we can see this happen in 1908, where Austria annexes Bosnia outright. The capital, of course, is Sarajevo, and that's where the assassination will take place. This really upsets the Serbs, who want a country of united Slavs, and they feel that Austria-Hungary is just going to stop this. So Serbia prepares for war. In 1908, we could have had World War I, but we don't. And Russia backs them. And the reason we don't, because Germany looks at Russia and says, back down, back down. Russia had to. Remember, just 3 years earlier, they got whooped by the Japanese. So Germany's feeling like the big guy in Europe. And then in 1912 and 1913, you have 2 years of Balkan Wars. And basically, we don't really need to go into the details, but understand this, that Austria-Hungary helped create the country of Albania. And Albania blocked Serbian access to the Adriatic Ocean. This is really going to upset the Serbs, especially. And this Serbian resentment is focused on the Habsburg Empire, all right, and the monarchy itself specifically, and we'll get, of course, into the assassination. Alrighty, so finally, in summary, let's do this. This entangling alliance system that leads to, of course, World War One. Ultimately, the alliance system brought about World War One. The nationalism that was so big at the time and imperialism were what led to the alliance system. It intensified the quest for allies and binding alliances because you didn't want to be outside in the cold when the World War went down. So you create these pretty heavy binding alliances. Also, each nation believed they must stand by their allies no matter the conflict because of the fear of losing an ally in a future war and being out in the cold, of course, like I mentioned. Lastly, nations needed allies to assure that it would not be cut off, conquered, or subjected to another's will. So for France, the reason they really hunger for alliances is because their French population is shrinking. They realize that they cannot fight Germany alone. Germany has a bigger population. They probably know they have a much better army too. For Germany, they feared being alone in a two-front war, which really pushes them to make these binding alliances. So with this last bullet point, think how that really goes back to the Franco-Prussian War, right? Creates this animosity between France and Germany, which leads to France and Germany really diving hard into binding alliances with these countries. So we can see how these are major issues in terms of the entangling alliances that lead to World War One. Alrighty, guys. So that was a good time. Enjoyed talking about it. I actually felt like I was back in class. If you really want to feel like we're back in class, I can be like, Baldridge, let me see your ears. Conley, what are you eating? Wyatt, why are you staring at Aaliyah? Gabe, please step away from my desk. Are we feeling like we're back in the classroom now? Miss you guys. Stay safe. Bye.